What's going on, everyone? It is March 18th, and it's a very unique day and a very special day because today is my birthday. But here we are in quarantine, and not a whole lot's going to end up happening. But that's even better for what I'm going to be talking to you about because this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity disguised as a problem. And what's funny about this situation, not so much funny, but more ironic about the situation is it's really an avatar for our lives. And I want to talk about something I think that's going to be extremely beneficial behind me here. But before I get into that, what I mean and as an analogy is that we have this concept in our lives when we know that pressure doesn't create weakness, pressure reveals it. So if we are in a situation or day-to-day life where we are faced with some sort of extreme pressure, it could be anything extremely good and favorable, and then anything that's extremely unfavorable on the opposite end of the spectrum. Either way you look at it, this becomes something that you look at as pressure begins to exert itself. It's going to reveal our actual character. And basically, when we are fearful, we're coming from a fear-based mindset, which is an extreme of an emotion. Actually, it's probably the most extreme emotion, with the exception of love, that this is usually what influences and impacts behavior. So the reason I bring that up are because right now we're in an extreme amount of pressure, which is basically moving to a default perspective. And in this default perspective, people are reacting to emotion and thinking in perpetuity to what they normally think. And as you continue to add pressure, it just continues to flatten that line. What I mean by flatten that line is just continues to play out the thoughts and as they are, and it becomes extreme problem for you if you're trying to do something different in your life, if you're trying to manifest and go next level. So what I have here behind me hopefully will make a little bit more sense, and it'll be able to give you some kind of an insight basically on how you guys can look at the situation, basically understand this, but not just from a theoretical perspective, from actually science, pure-based science, and understand basically what's going on in your head, what's going on in your mind, and use that information to give yourself new skill sets when it comes to making decisions, and then therefore hopefully manifesting the things that you want. So I'm gonna step over here on the side. Hopefully you guys can see this and I'm not in the frame. But this is an overall diagram which basically distinguishes between the mind and the brain, how they work, and then the different subsets of each one. As you guys can see here in column 1, this is about the conscious mind, the unconscious mind. There is a third pillar called the subconscious, but we're not going to be talking too much about that today. The brain, the neocortex, which is the outermost layer, and the limbic system, which is more of an inner layer regarding the brain. The mind, the intangible, that which you cannot see, and the brain, which is obviously a muscle, can be weighed, can be measured, that which you can see. So the reason I bring these up are because at the end of the day, they are different, but they do interact and they do obviously emulate one another. And this is the basis of decision making right here, and everything that you end up doing. That compounded over time basically turns into a paradigm set. That paradigm set becomes the governor for how you think, how you move, how you respond, who you interact with, who you choose to interact with. All those things, just what you can think of, is based on the information that I'm talking about here. So if you can find a way to manipulate that to the favor, that way you can manifest very specific outcomes, you're going to be in a much better place, and you won't be in a prison or in purgatory. So let's break this down a little bit. I'm going to start over here with the mind, and then I'll go into the brain. So the major difference between conscious and unconscious mind, believe it or not, I'm actually going to start with the unconscious mind. It's designed to keep you alive, and so we get a fear-based response, which we call fight or flight response. That comes from the sympathetic nervous response, as we call it in psychology, and then obviously the opposite of that is rest and digest, which is a parasympathetic response. So this is designed to keep you alive, and so doing so, you can see here that there's a scanner, and basically your unconscious mind is designed to navigate your environment and basically find out what exactly is going on. Is this something that's a threat? If so, what is it a threat of? And obviously you get your fear-based response. Conscious mind, on the other hand, is actually kind of a mirror opposite. This is designed to get you to expand, to get you to move and become more than what you actually are. And so I'll talk about that over here in the neocortex in just a second, but what I want you guys to basically take home from the conscious mind is that this is where you get ideas and innovation, and you look at opportunity. And so as you can see here, logic, this part comes from the unconscious mind. Opportunity to look at the reward situation, basically risk versus reward, where that comes from, and then being able to set intentions. When I say by set intentions, it's something that you actually think about putting into practice to try to create a different outcome. Okay, so if you get any idea to basically do something that you really want to do that's going to have a significant or compounding positive or proactive inside your life, learning a new language, being able to travel, taking a vacation, moving and starting over, and possibly going out and connecting with somebody that you might find attractive, and forming, putting yourself out there in new friendships. A lot of that's generated here from the unconscious mind. So I'll come back to this in a second. I want to take a second to talk to you guys about what's going on here in the brain. This is more of the biological function. Okay, so as you guys can see here, you have the neocortex again, which is the outermost portion. This reflects and emulates a lot of what's happening here in the conscious mind, and so this is our level for higher thinking. A lot of the things that you can end up seeing over fMRI regarding language, cognitive thought, your ability to make decisions. You guys can see that happens here. This is what separates us as a species of human from other animals, because we are the apex predator right here. We are the apex predator, and the reason we're the apex predator is because you can look at a baby, a fetus, and see that it's nothing but bald potential. And then through certain types of conditioning and training, a human being can be just about anything. We can be astronauts, we can be extreme athletes. If we don't take care of our body, we can see what ends up happening with some of the diseases. And so a lot of that happens here because of the biological functioning that's available to us, with a different type of cells and communication happening on the outer part of the brain, and your ability to use rationale. That happens here. Then you have a different system here, limbic system, which emulates the unconscious mind. This is what actually ties us to animals. This is basically the most fundamental parts that actually keep you alive. So your ability to have your life essentials and the basic human needs. Can you have food, shelter, water? These are some of the biological functions when you are hungry, when you feel anger, when you feel sad. You're talking about the limbic system here. And again, like I said before, this is the innermost part of the brain. If some of you are familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these are the bottom two layers. And then as you begin to move up the ladder towards esteem, needs, and self-actualization, it happens here. So not to drift too much, I'm going to open this back up. What you're really seeing is that you have the neocortex and the conscious mind, which are emulating each other, the physical and the unseen. And then same thing here with the unseen on the unconscious mind that ties to the very tangible and measurable limbic system. So this is basically what I want you guys to understand after we've had the opportunity of kind of breaking this down. What ends up happening is that over here in our limbic system, we have subcortical structures, as we end up calling them, and you have something that's called the hippocampus. Hippocampus is responsible for memory. Anterograde, retrograde memory doesn't really matter. This happens over here. And so if you have an inner part of the brain that's supposed to be a memory, it is a data collection of every single experience that's ever happened, meaning that a lot of the paradigms are formed here because of emotion. So if you have the unconscious mind, which is always scanning to basically work on keeping you alive and keeping you stable, and you have a subset of experiences and memories here, then what ends up happening is that you begin as an individual to start usually over here in the unconscious mind. And you might get the idea, if I go back and use the analogy, to connect with somebody, right? You might be able to look at all of the opportunities and all the wonderful things. You see somebody, they're attractive, or you're excited to connect with somebody because you think they're fun. There's a lot of interest. But let's say over here, at an earlier time in your life, this is actually something that has happened to you before, and because of the experience that didn't happen the way you wanted on an outcome, but also the emotional negativity that it generated, it developed a fear-based response. Well, as a fear-based response, that became a part of what you end up understanding here. And as a response to that, unconscious mind will actually go generate an emotion. The central nervous system will interact with the body and prevent you from actually taking action. You will give up on this reward. So the reason that that's important is because if you guys can think just for a second right now, we are put in this unfavorable situation, this unfavorable circumstance, which basically has forced us into isolation and social distancing. We're not used to that as people, especially being forced to do something that we don't want to do. With great detriment comes great opportunity, and it also becomes more of a social responsibility. And I think that what we're seeing is that a lot of people are taking proactive standpoints of using this opportunity to work on themselves, or discovering things, or connecting with people, whatever that is. But there's also fear out there, and rightfully so, because being a gym owner, businesses are closing, and that's causing a lot of stress on the financial gain. My sponsors, Flex Comics, these guys are, in danger themselves. And so you have organizations of people out here who are worried for their life. And what's happening is that they're experiencing these phenomena, these stimuli, which is letting them lead to other times in their life when they were scared. And as a result, unconscious mind is saying, this is a violation to the person that you are right now. So then people are going into a fear-based response. That kind of thinking over time in perpetuity is only going to begin to form more outcomes that you guys don't want. So that's what I really want you to take from this, is that unconscious is not bad, and nor are the limbic systems and the inner workings of your brain designed to work together. These things help keep you alive. They're essential to the basic functions. But they're not exactly the best friends when it comes to finding a way to problem solve, finding ways to innovate your life, finding ways to be better, because their job is basically to keep you as you are. Carol, Mike, Jeff, Jim, as you are right now, they see that as safe, and anything outside of that is potentially risking. So they put you here. Now, let's shift gears here for a second so I can wrap up. If we think about how these two work, it's not that they're not taking into consideration that this is a very esoteric phenomena between the interaction of the neocortex and the conscious mind. What you're beginning to understand here is that the neocortex has these things in place in case and ever we decide to manage the risk versus reward and pursue the reward. Our sole objective is to generate and understand what exactly it is that we want, why exactly we want that, because if we know exactly what it is we want, why we want those things, then we can attach emotion into our immediate power, and then therefore we can use our rationale. That rationale will allow us to move past the fear-based response. So this will become the dominating force between this, and ultimately what that's going to happen is that's going to allow you to move into some action, set some intentions. So all of those things, the logic and the higher thinking, ultimately end up giving you the opportunity to say, is the glass half full or half empty? You see the opportunity, you begin to apply yourself, and as a result, you move into better thinking. So that is ultimately what I want to share with you guys, and the take-home message from that is that you're only as stuck in the situation as you guys feel, but if you're able to look at your life and find things that you genuinely want, desire, genuinely, only it has to be something that's organic and really fulfilling for you, then you can use this information and this time of this platform that's being forced on us by this pandemic and shift your circumstances and actually come out further and better along, not only in whatever situation, but ultimately as a person who's going to be better and more capable. So that's my take on the situation. I wanted to make sure I shared that with you guys. I am going to be offering some services that I'm going to put out here on social media regarding coaching. You'll have a lot more strategy and information like this, but instead of that being more on a macro, you guys will have the opportunity of connecting with me one-on-one. I'm going to have opportunity of learning about you and how I can be of help in your situations, in your lives, your circumstances, whatever it is that you want to do. And then hopefully growth hacking, using science, using information, using applicable theory to figure out how to navigate and help you guys generate results. And that's for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, short and tall, fit or not fit, black or white, Asian, green, blue, doesn't really matter. If you are in a position where you want to do something with your life and you're trying to manifest an outcome, I highly encourage you to connect with me. You guys can send me a DM if you have questions about this information. More than happy to break it down for you further. So again, send me direct messages. I appreciate you guys taking this time to listen to this video, and I look forward to connecting and helping you however I can. Godspeed.